Hello, and welcome to the Baseball and Balls podcast. I am your host, Connor, joined by no one. We're trying something a little bit new. A lot of league members are currently out of the office, so I'm just going to be doing this solo. If you like this model, please let us know. I think we look forward to exploring something different. This will be a quick one, but I think there are a wide range of topics. First, congratulations to the Florida Panthers for winning the Stanley Cup in what is not the world's best sport. Second, a quick overview of how this podcast will go. First, we will talk about the key matchups of the previous week. This is being recorded on a Monday. We will focus on the crucial matchups or big upsets, but I will list one player from every team that I think will have an impact down the road, either in the trade market or for future playoff prospects. Then we will go over three key trades that I think could definitely impact the playoff race. The third is a quick update on the state of the league. We had some key matchups and how did what happened affect it. And finally, we are going to go over the matchups for next week. Let's get started. The first matchup that we want to talk about is probably, I think, the closest. Dave had it very close against Jab. The Portland Sea Dogs beat the Rochester Red Wings 6.7 to 616. That is an absolute shocker. I know Dave had a terrific upset the previous week, but this, I think, just proves that he's in contention and had some buys that we're going to go at. The record's not great, but this team has so much potential. For Dave, I think a couple key players, Byron Buxton scoring 31 points. He looks like he's alive. Hunter Brown, a recent acquisition with 33, and Bailey Over with a complete game. James Paxton got him 44 points. He was acquired for a worst. So I think that's just terrific. And then Jab may have had a down week, but when you have that much talent on your team, you are going to be able to weather these down weeks. So the guy I have pointed out is Brian Bayo. He scored 29 points in a one-start week. And he underperforms a bit compared to 2023. But if he really gets going, he may not be the biggest name pitcher on the Sea Dogs, but I really think that he could push Jab's team over the top and into the best echelon possible of teams. The second one we will go after is maybe the most importance for the playoffs, or I should say the higher end of them. The Bowling Green Hot Rods beat the Vibes 829 to 647. Back-to-back bad weeks for Bry. Happens to the best of us, but I'm really curious to see what this team does going forward. I would say Tyler Glass now, just maybe like who I think is Cody's signature player, getting 49 is very crucial. And then Bry's just continued to make some smart moves, but this week his team didn't have it. I do want to point out a 50-point performance from the bullpen is good against most teams, but compared to Cody, who has 4 legitimate closers, that will not do it. And Stephen Kwan is starting to look like an MVP. So congratulations to Hot Rods for an absolute thumping there. The biggest priority matchup for maybe the lower tier of the playoff is the Norfolk Tides beating the Nashville Sound 796 to 406. Going into this week, Peta was, I would say, a pretty nice favorite for the 7 seed and Paul getting the 6. And it's just been back-to-back bad pitching weeks for the Sounds. 77 pitching points is not going to cut it. Jeremiah Estrada has been a nice relief find, but outside of that, not much went too great in Nashville land. And for the Tides, 796 points, that is an elite score. I'm curious to see how well Paul can keep that up. But when you have Kyle Schwarber, Mr. June, Gunnar Henderson, and Josh Naylor combining for almost like 230 points, that is absolutely ridiculous. So congratulations to the Tides, and I think that might have the most playoff implications, those two matchups. The third one is OKC beating Hen Dogs team 710 to 600. This is a really impressive performance by Chad. There have been a couple weeks where the 89ers yearned to score 600 points, and this week absolutely did it. Nathaniel Lowe with 33 is kind of having a down year. Carlos Santana with 40 has been a complete find after being on the free agent market. Now I believe he's the 11th ranked first baseman. And Henn's team has so much talent, 70 hitting points, but it's just kind of in a slide. I do think this team will recover. Shota Imanaga with minus 23. There could be an adjustment to the Major League Baseball, given how Japanese pitchers rest differently, but I do think that he has too much talent, and back-to-back bad starts is not going to be a normal occurrence, and I'm going to bet that Hen turns around pretty well. I think the remaining three matchups really don't warrant as much attention. The Rocket City Trash Pandas, Homco, did put up a very nice fight against the Yard Goats, but Heights team is in a different class and just kind of outlasted this one. So there was a nice comeback at the end, but I pulled it off. And after a couple really rough weeks, I think the whole league was on edge to see if this could happen, but it was not meant to be. I do want to point out 425 hitting points for Homco is crazy. And hopefully Brian Wu is healthier going forward. I believe he's been scratched from a couple starts. Nick Castellanos and Jaron Duran with 66 points each is also crazy. Then the other two are less close, I'd say. The Amarillo Sod Poodles, myself, beat Bracton's Bismarck Larks 561 to 499. 500 points has been around where Bracton's been. 550 is where my team kind of wants to be. And Bracton's pitching did outscore mine, which I do think could be key for the trade market later. Carlos Estevez with 2 saves. He's looked much better than he did earlier in the year. But my bats with 373, I've had some buy lows that ended up great. Radio Rosarena with 56 points, and others that have been trash. George Springer has still looked pretty terrible. And the final one, Scott's Richmond Flying Squirrels won 718 to the El Paso Chihuahuas 453 points. I would say that Scott's team, this is the week that he shows what we thought he could be at the beginning of the season. The Squirrels have a lot of great hitting talent and some interesting pitching, so I think there was a lot of hype for them being an 8 or 9 seed. That has not been the case, but this definitely shows the potential for it. Shout out to Smell for 207 pitching points. Reese Olson still looked like an absolute dog. And in between Aaron Savali, Nestor Cortez was 61, and Logan Allen, there is some bright pitching in Richmond, but the Bats 521 points is just absolutely ridiculous. And I'm really curious to see how Scott goes about looking at, can he keep a Royce Lewis? What is the value of Josh Smith on his team versus on someone else's? Pete Alonso has been in decent acquisition so far in the Bryce Harper deal. So those are the matchups. Couple fun surprises and some results that I think everyone was expecting. Next, I would like to go over 3 key trades that I think are going to have a big impact going forward. Not a lot of these are done by Tita. There were other trades that I think had some intrigue or we weren't expecting, but these are ones that I think are going to impact the playoff race, and I want to do a bit more of a dive on. If you like this style compared to going over the larger trades, please let us know, and we will continue to adapt the pod to suit what our listeners want. The first one is Smell trading Hunter Brown to Dave for Ricky Tiedemann, Cole Young, and Chase DeLauder. I absolutely love this deal for both teams. Hunter Brown is a high-end pitcher who had a bad year and a month debuting in the majors, found a new pitch, and the last month or two has looked like a top prospect stud that everyone expected him to be. So I think it was a great buy low for Snell, but for this kind of player, you need to bring the heat for an offer. And Peterman, Young, and Chase Lauder, a couple of them have had injury issues, but they're still very high end brand names. So it's not out of the question that one or two of them could surpass or match what Hunter Brown is doing now. And for Dave, it's just a great fit. He's on the hunt for pitching, which is never a bad strategy in this league. And Hunter Brown is the perfect ace for the future core and maybe sneak in a couple fun wins for this season as well. The second one I would like to discuss is Jack Flaherty and Kobe Mayo going to Paul for Dave getting Spencer Steer, Casey Mize, David Bednar, and a second round pick. And Dave also traded Carlos Correa to Hen for Jeremy Pena, Alexis Diaz, and a prospect. I think these are really fun tandem trades. Dave's just making some smart moves. Paul is definitely looking to go in the upper echelon, and Jack Flaherty has pitched like someone who can compete against the Codys, the Bryes, the Jabs. So this is a very good situational trade for the Tides, but I think Dave's haul is absolutely terrific. Spencer Steer has the potential to be a top 50 fantasy asset. Casey Mize has definitely shown some signs of life recently, and David Bednar is nothing to laugh at. I believe he recently is on the injured list, but definitely a player to watch out for a Pirates team that hopefully keeps improving. And Carlos Correa is now just the hottest player on earth. So I think that this was just an absolute really good sell. Jeremy Payne is Carlos Correa's literal replacement in Houston. And getting a couple other pieces, Alexis Diaz is nothing to laugh at. And I believe the prospect is Luke Adams. So he's a solid guy in the Brewers organization. So he could turn it into something. And the third deal, I think this is the one that shocked me personally the most. Chad received Alex Bregman, and Tita got Max Clark, Josh Bell, 25 first round pick, and two 26 first round picks. Third base is a hard position to nail down. Jose Ramirez, Rafael Devers, Manny Machado before this year. Alex Bregman is either in the 1B or 2A column of those players and has really been turning around recently. That is a piece that if Chad is seriously going for the 7 seed or even higher, that is a great fit for him. But I think Tita just did an asset masterclass here. Max Clark is a first rounder, so essentially 4 first rounders and Josh Bell, who has certainly been not too much of a slouch the last year. I like the fit for both teams. Bregman is hitting well now, but if Tita is still really gunning for a playoff seed, I have every confidence that he will turn and has turned those assets into Alex Bregman or some other piece that will fit his team better. Some of those assets he's already moved. It's Tita, no surprise, but I think time is going to tell on this one how well the Sounds move around those spots. A quick update on where the league is. Right now, we are currently through 12 weeks. This is being recorded on Monday of week 13. And I think the only real status update to the playoff picture is the Sounds being humiliated by Paul and Chad getting closer. Right now, Tita does have 300 points more than the 89ers on the year. And those two teams will play, I believe, in week 15 or 16. That is just going to be massive. Right now, Paul does have a game on Tita, and Paul actually has the same record as 10 and more points. But a lot of the top 4 standings, Height, Bry, Cody, and Jab, have been pretty predictable so far. So if I had one hot take, it would probably be Paul entering that top four, given how good the team has been recently. But I could also see where the 7 seed is reserved. If Chad keeps buying and Tita might be the odd man out, I don't know if the entire league would be surprised. We've had some fireworks before. Last year, there was a 3 team race for the 7 seed with Smell, Bracton, and Paul. Paul won and then upset Cody. So once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. And I think that is the thought for a couple of these teams. But I think the main things to watch out for: can Paul stay on a heater? Is Tita or Chad going to win the 7 seed? Because that's very much up in the air. And I'm personally a downer on any surprise teams coming back, but anyone can get on a hot streak. Uh, Dave's been buying, and his team has looked very competitive against the top four. Tomko's had bad luck. Maybe I start buying more than a surprise. There is a 2 game difference between the 4 and 8 teams and the 2 6 and 6 ones. The 4 and 8 teams currently being the Squirrels, my team, the Poodles, and the Chihuahuas. And there are 2 6 and 6 teams, the 89ers and the Sounds. I don't see too much changing there. I The Sounds are going to go for it. That's just key to style, and he versus Chad's going to be a clash, and then it will be something to see how the top four turn out. Looking ahead to next week's matchups. I shouldn't say next week because they've already started. We currently have essentially one full day and a couple of surprises, but we'll also have some predictions for the full week. Going from top to bottom, the Sod Poodles will play the Rocky Mountain Vibes, and Bry is going to trash my team. The Vibes have had rough back-to-back weeks, and they are going to pull out every stop to avoid another potential embarrassment. So right now, the Vibes are currently beating my team 158 to 81, but I think that Bry is going to get firmly back in the win column, and if he clearly exceeds 700 points, I am not going to be surprised. The El Paso Chihuahuas versus the Bismarck Lark. I feel like there should be a name for this, but I'm not aware of one currently being the case. Uh, I think Smell is going to win this. I just think the pitching infrastructure at the major league level is a little bit better. The Chihuahuas did get off to a hot streak, and while I think that has cooled down a little bit, I think that Smell's team has shown way more resilience than a lot of people expected. Um, and then Bracton is going to continue to hold his premier blue chip stocks and see how they go. So both of them are long term projects, but I think right now Mel's pitching is just better. The Hartford Yard Goats versus the Bowling Green Hot Rods. This is probably no, it is the fireworks of the week. Cody's team, I think, has been better this year. Obviously, Height's team is nothing to laugh at. Only 2 losses is terrific, but the Hot Rods just have more depth, and a couple other pieces I think are starting to come alive. I Right now the score is 67 to 52 in Cody's favor, with no starters having gone. I do think that Cody pulls this off, but I could see where on Friday or Saturday this is close, and these 2 teams just start dealing to see where moves can be made. One trade I did not go over was Height getting Jerks and Profar for Blake Snell. I'm going to be very curious to see how well Profar does in the bat. Um, I was a big critic of Marcelo Zuna moving for Manny Machado, and Zuna has still looked terrific. So while I think Snell's a terrific piece, I think that Profar could do well, and can't wait to see how this trade turns out for our good goat buddies. I don't know. Dogs are man best friends. I don't know what goats are. The Norfolk Tides versus Clearwater Beach Dogs. One team seems like it's very quickly going up, and one team seems like it is treading water like a surfing dog would. Right now, it's 116 to 105, but more pitchers have been used by the Tides, 3-1 starting wise. I think Paul wins this. That said, I'm not sure if this is a must win for the Tides as it is compared to maybe Penn's team. So I could see where Penn pulls out more stops to try to stem the tides. um, this is going to be a fascinating one. I know I'm going to be watching this the entire week, and I think the listening audience will as well. These are teams with the same record. Paul scored 400 points more, so I do think that there is playoff scene implications, but I'm not sure who considers this more desperate. Portland Sea Dogs versus the OKC 89ers is currently 161 to 47 in the Sea Dogs' favor. This is a tier one team versus a tier two, maybe tier three. I do think Chad has a nice spot at the seventh seed, but the Sea Dogs are a top four team. And when it gets in between tiers and you have Aaron Nola, Tanner Bybee, and Tanner Houck on 2 week starts, it is kind of hard to go against your team. So I do think the Sea Dogs pull this off, but if Chad scores another 650, 700 point outing, I'm really going to start reconsidering that Tita being my favorite for the 7 seed. Uh, Hopefully, this one's going to be fascinating. I think both GMs have done an incredible job of staying patient and making moves around the edges. So this should be a fun one between two Scrubs legends. The Rocket City Trash Pandas play the Richmond Flying Squirrels, and the Trash Pandas are currently beating the Squirrels 82 to 20. And I think that Homko's going to get back in the win column here. Scott's team went absolutely off last week, but I'm not sure if that can be repeated. And quite frankly, Homko's team is due for a win. Chris Bassett putting up 21 in one of the only 2 starts. Brian Wu left with an injury. Um, Certainly a decent start, but 55 for 17 points on the offense. That's a good start. And I think Homko's talent is just too much to overcome that early deficit. It's definitely early in the week, but I don't know if this is an upset, but I do think that Homko is going to beat Scott, but this will also be a fun one. Dave versus Tita. Final one. I think this is just going to be fascinating. 89 to 43 in the Red Wings' favor as of this podcast. And right now it is 2 starts for Dave and 1 start for Tita. I don't know if this is a must win for Tita since maybe the biggest competitor for his spot, Chad, is also in a matchup that doesn't seem likely to win, but I kind of want to call the upset here. Dave's been doing some very interesting buys, and Tita's definitely going to find the best matches possible, but the last 2 weeks or so just haven't worked out. The pitching's been rough. I do think Tita gets the pitching back to an extent, but Dave's starting to have the foundational pieces that are going to be a little matchup proof. Has that fully materialized yet? I'm not sure. James Paxton having another good start, is that going to continue? I don't know. But I do think Dave has been on an upward trajectory and Tita's gone up, down, up, down. And Dave's team just seems like it's on the rise, having had such a major upset and then playing Jab incredibly close to where the entire league was watching Sunday at 5 p.m. So I want to say Dave comes back here with the wild card being Wilson Contreras, who Dave just acquired from Tita. But this should be a close one, and I can't wait to see if these GMs have any fun experiences, or I should say moves, later in the week, or what they do. Maybe a couple of them will show up on this podcast. Those were the main matchups for, I would say that wraps up the entire podcast. Uh, Thank you for joining. I guess since I'm the only person, I should leave with a few words. Right now, this league's still in a great spot. The last few weeks, we've talked about how the playoffs seem kind of locked, but there could be some upsets. But every week, there's something wild that happens. There are four things wild that happen. A lot of folks are going to be moved, and there's almost one major upset each week. I'd say we've only had one or two dud weeks where everything played out exactly according to plan. So what the my prediction for this week will be that Dave upsets Tita, but I think that either way there's room for fireworks. So there's never room to breathe and just not set your lineups every week, because these are 14 cutthroat GMs, and we all came here to play. So I know I really enjoyed my time in here, and I think everyone else has. And thank you for joining, and have a great rest of the night.